Hey everybody, Lars here. This is going to be the first Unit 1 video that you get for this particular unit. It's basically going to cover the first half of your slides, and it's going to be an easy one. We're just going to fire up idle and look at some basics and show you how to run your first program and do a little bit of arithmetic, and then we'll close up by using the input function. Want to make sure everyone's good and they get Python set up on their systems because we're going to be using it all semester. If you're not set up or you're having trouble, go to the cave this Sunday, and Hans will be there all day, and he can help you with your troubles. He is good for what ails you. So if you're not set up on your system, everybody has different systems, so it's tough to just show how to install it. Some people use Apple, some people are using Linux, so they have a Linux setup. I happen to be using a Windows computer right now, but I'm using Windows 8.1. I didn't upgrade because I didn't see any reason to. A lot of people are using Windows 10, and it puts idle in a funny spot. If you just go to python.org and you grab old Python, what it'll do is it'll ask you for a directory to put it in, and what I usually do is I set up a directory with a version name, in this case Python 3.4 because I'm using 3.4, and if you go to the directory where you put Python and you go to the lib directory, not lowercase libs but uppercase lib, and you will see a directory called the idle lib. And if you go there and you scroll down a little bit, you will see a list of programs. That is the actual code that idle is written in. Idle is written in Python. So you use a Python program to craft a Python program. So it's a little recursive. Actually, that's the no console version. That's the console version. But if you're using Windows, you'll see that there's a Windows batch file. So if you go here and you see the Windows batch file and you drag it onto your desktop, then you will end up with a icon that you can use to fire idle up and start crafting your programs. So I have already fired mine up, and that's basically what the interface should look like. Now mine says 3.4 because I didn't put 3.5 on yet. I have it, but it's with another kind of Python that I use. But as far as this base system is concerned, I have 3.4 loaded here, and that's what comes up in the interactive window. There's going to be little differences. There's going to be little differences with your output. Don't let it freak you out. As long as when you add 2 plus 2, it equals 4. If something else starts popping up, then maybe we do have a problem. But most times it's just the little idiosyncrasies that different kinds of systems have. Because I know I put Python on a Windows 10 machine for one of my nephews, and it put the actual Python installation in my documents under the user directory, and it did something else weird, and it wouldn't let you save to other spots. It was a real train wreck, real pain in the arse. I like the way that Python worked in the past, but you do a little bit of searching, do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of reading, you should be okay. All right, so get set up. If you're not, see Hans, make sure you're good, but at the end of the day, you should have a Python interactive window to use, like the one in front of us right now, okay? All right. Duty commands me to do print hello world is the first thing we do as an example. Where's my exclamation point? There it is. Okay, so if you're in the interactive window and you do print hello world, whoop, it'll print hello world. There you go, boom, you're a Python programmer. We're going to do some other stuff. Let's see, let's assign some variables. Remember, if you read the slides, variables just a little cubby hole that holds values. So I will say a equals 4, and then if I just type a, it'll print the 4. Okay, now this is out of the interactive window. You'll see in about 5 minutes we're going to create a program, and that's going to be a little bit different. Let's get another number. B equals 7, B, boom, right there. Now if we want, we can do simple arithmetic. We can say a plus b, and it'll tell us 11, which is good. Or we can set that equal to yet another variable and print out C, and now C gives us that 11. Okay? So you can use the Python interactive window to run Python commands and do other things, and you're going to see this comes in handy because later when we run our programs, the interactive window is going to be aware of our variable names and all of our things, so it's a good thing to come into to debug programs and see what variables are at certain points in your program and do some other things, all right? One thing I do want to do while we're sitting here in the interactive window is you look at A and it gives you a 4, okay? Doesn't give you 4.0, doesn't give you 4.5, it gives you 4 because right now we've set that variable to what we in computer programming call an integer. And an integer is just a whole number, okay? It's a number without any thing after the decimal point, whole number. They're very easy to deal with in computer science. And if you go back in computer science history, it's much easier programming-wise for us to deal with integers than it is to deal with the second type of data type that we're going to look at right now, which is what we call a floating point number, or a float. A float has the decimal places and allows you to deal with arithmetic and math with much greater precision. Okay? Now, you've got a variable. Python uses something called dynamic typing. We don't tell the program beforehand what we want to use, be it integer, be it float. We just go ahead and assign it, and then Python says, oh, that's a float. I'm making this a float. But if you want to see what something is, there's a function you can use, and it's called type. And if you just say type D, it'll come back and say class float, and that'll tell you that you have a floating point number there. We will just do one for A, and you'll see that says class int. That means integer. So that is a class integer. So you can use the type function to tell what kind of variables you have, even though you are using dynamic typing. Okay. Oh, one last thing I do want to show you. I guess we use W. I don't know why I use W. Is you can also use words or strings of characters. So if I say W and then I print W, it prints the string Lars. As you can see, it is bounded by 2 single quotes, and that tells us that we are using a string. And a string is a different type of variable that, you can't really do arithmetic on it, although you can use the plus sign if you want to put 2 strings together. In computer science, that's called concatenation. And you can see that says class str. There's a 4th data type that we are going to be dealing with in this particular unit. That's called Boolean. That's a variable that's either true or false. We're not going to really deal with that right now. What we are going to do, now that you've seen a little bit of playing around in the interactive window, is we're going to do what we came here to do. We're going to create a program. And the way we do that with idle is I'm going to come up here to the File menu, and I'm going to say File, New File, and it's going to give me a blank window, tabula rasa, and I'm going to bring it over here so we can see it. And here I can type a program. If I start with a number sign, or it is also called an octothorpe, I can create comments. Comments are not processed by Python as commands. I can write anything I want. I implore you to be descriptive when you write your programs and put in a lot of comments. Tell us what you're doing. Explain your thinking process. Explain the logic that your program is using as it runs. I usually say this comments. I usually say this is a comment, but up at the top of the program, it is usually a good thing to say who you are. Excuse me. And also, I usually put the purpose of the program. Just simple prog to play with Python. Okay, so now I have some comments at the top of my program. Of course, I'm just going to say print hello world, and we will have a hello world program be our first Python program. Okay, so that's my program. All I want to do is print hello world to the screen. Now, what I want to do here is save the program. As you can see up here, it's untitled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say File, I'm going to say Save As, and I'm going to put it somewhere. Where I'm going to put it. Probably not where you're going to put it, but it doesn't matter, as long as you keep things in the right place. Where is my fall 2016 Unit 1? I will call this Revision 1, or Rev 1. And Python will automatically give it a suffix of .py. So that way my Windows system will know that it's a Python program, and if I double click it, it'll try to run it with Python. Most other systems will do this as well. when you name it .py and it's brought into an editor. Editors know that it's a Python program, and sometimes they'll color your keywords and color your comments. And as you can see, as we're going along, we're getting different colors for different types of commands, statements, and functions. And we'll look at that in a second. So I'm just going to call this rev1. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to say rev1.py right there, okay? As you can see, comments, anything after an octothorpe, are red. So you can see those programs are red. Strings are green. Functions are purple. And as you use idle, you will see that it will color different things. This will come in handy later, because when we create variable names, we want to avoid function names and things that exist already. So if you type a variable name and it shows up purple, well, you know you've got to avoid it. That will definitely come into play if you try to use the word sum, and you will find that out later. So now I've got a program. It's saved. Whenever you see a star, that means there's been a change and you haven't saved yet. So you can come here and say save. You can see save is Control S. So a lot of people will just, boom, boom, use Control S and save their programs. So now I want to run my program. And the way I do that is I come up here to the menu and I say run, and I click run module. Okay, but you see next to that it says F5, because I'm going to teach you a trick. You say run module, and you'll see down here in the interactive window, that is where your output will appear, and that's where most of the work is going to be done as you write your programs. When you run them, you're going to see the output show up in the Python interactive window. And I usually, do what I'm doing here. I'll keep the interactive window next to my code, and then when I run my code, it clicks over and runs right there, okay? So, print hello world. A little on the boring side. Let's assign some variables. So I'm going to say A equals, let's say 10. I'm going to say B equals 12. So now I have two variables, A equals 10 and B equals 12. I'm actually using bad terminology here, because that single equal sign in computer programming languages, some of them, and Python, doesn't mean equals at all. It means assignment. It means I'm assigning the value 10 to the variable A. I'm assigning the value 12 to the variable B. And remember, they're just simple cubbyholes. I mean, what makes it nice is that I can write logic using the variable names, and then later I can change their values and then redo the program so it gives me different results. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say the sum, not sum, and I'm going to make it equal to A plus B. Easy. Then I'm going to say the diff, and I'm going to make it equal to B minus A. Then I'm going to say the prod. That's going to be equal to A times B. That is an asterisk for multiplication on top of your 8. Then I'm going to say the quotient, and I'll make that equal to B divided by A. Then, what is this? I'm going to say the quotient 2, and I'm going to say B 2 slashes A, and we will explain that in a second. Then I'm going to print my results to see what we get. So what am I going to print? I'm going to print the sum, the diff, the prod, the quo, need a T, the quo 2, and see, is that what that is? Yes, it is. Okay, then now I'll do it the old-fashioned way one more time. I'll say File, and I'll say Save. And then I'll go up to Run, and I'll say Run Module. And as you can see, it still prints my hello world, but now I get the sum, which is 22, the difference, which is 2. So far, we're in good shape. Then I get the product. I think I'm right there, 120. Then I get the regular division, okay? So the quote, if I looked at that variable, would be holding a float because it's 1.2. That is regular division, okay? But then the second one, now I'm an old fuddy-duddy, so I used to call this integer division. But what I think Python calls it is floor division, okay? If you know you're using integers and you know you don't want to deal with anything after a decimal point, you use this kind of division and it'll round down. It will always just lose the remainder and give you the whole number portion of the division operation. All right? So that's called floor division, and that's what we use when we use 2 slashes instead of 1. 2 more things I want to do when I play around with this. We can do exponentiation. Let's call it expo. and give me b. Kind of makes logical sense. 2 multiplications, we'll do exponentiation. We'll just, we'll cube it. Square, and it's kind of boring. And we'll just print that out and see what we get real quick. I'll do expo, then I do Control S to save, F5 to run, and it runs real quick. And I get 1728. I'm assuming that's correct. I'm not going to check it. And one last thing we're going to do is we're going to do modulus. And let me show you modulus. Modulus is a percent sign. Okay? I'm going to do modulus BA, and you'll see how it works in a second. And then I will print the mod, and we rerun, and you're going to see the modulus is 2. And this is why. Modulus, why it's called modulus, I don't know. I'm sure it has to do with the old math days. But basically what it should be called is the remainder operation, because what it does is performs a division, and instead of giving you the result of the division, it gives you the remainder. So, B, 12 divided by 10, what's the remainder? 2. Okay? So that's why I got a 2 in the variable the mod, and when I printed it, I got a 2 down there. So that's what modulus does. Okay? Modulus gives you the remainder of a division operation. Comes in handy, because actually in this class it will come in handy, because that's something that's very good to tell you if something is a factor of something else. And I'm sure you can guess how to do that. One last thing I'm going to do in this particular section is we'll do something with a string. And I might as well use my name again, because I'm a simpleton. And back in the, interactive window, when we ran that, we just did W and something showed up. But now we're running a program, so we can't do that anymore. Now we have to explicitly print, and if we explicitly print, you're going to see then it prints Lars at the bottom, okay? One little trick, and you're going to do this a lot, is when you print, you can have multiple strings to print, and you can print integers and floats and basically any variable you want. I am going to create what we call a string literal, where I don't really assign it to a variable, I just give it a string, and I'm going to say my name is, then comma, and then the variable, and then when it is printed, it'll say my name is Lars. Okay? Python will throw that extra space in there for you when you give it a comma, so that without you having to do the spacing and stuff like that, you get the extra space and it reads properly. Okay? So, there you go. I mean, we've already done a bunch of stuff. You know how to make a comment. You know how to use the print function, and you know how to use a print function with a string literal and multiple strings. One string is a variable, is sitting in a variable. You know about 3 different data types. You know about strings. You know about integers, which we're using up here, but because of the quotient, you also know about floating point. So we can also, here, print, and then use the type function within the print statement and say the quote. And then if we do that, it'll tell you it's a float. Okay? But if next to it, we do type quote 2, it will tell us that that is an integer, because you don't need what's after the decimal in that particular instance. Okay? Now, you don't have to type all of this. When you go to your resource section, your Unit 1 resource section in our Sakai site, here, let me see. Hey, look at that right up there. When you go to resources, oh, this new interface is slow. Click on Unit 1. I'm going to put rev1.py here, as well as a link to the slides. But you know that already because you're watching the slides. So I am preaching to the choir. All right? So we don't have to bother with that. Now, I'm going to teach you a little trick. You see how up here to create a comment, I typed a number sign, and then anything after the number sign is going to be considered a comment. It's another way we can kind of comment in Python. Remember when I just gave you the W and nothing really happened? Python doesn't care if you just give it a string. It's not going to print it, and it's not going to do anything with it. But it's not just putting it out there in space isn't necessarily an invalid command. It's not going to throw an error or anything like that. So if you have a string in the middle of your code, that's kind of not a bad thing. So what we're going to do is a little trick that Python programmers do. I'm going to come here at the beginning of my code, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 quotation marks. Okay? You noticed everything went green. It's because when I have 3 quotation marks, and then I end 1, 2, 3 with 3 quotation marks, everything in between the quotation marks becomes a string. Okay? You can see idle has colored it green. So idle sees it as a string. And because if we just give Python a string when we run our program, it doesn't really do anything. We don't print it, it's not set to a variable. It just, I don't know how to say it. It's considered, and that's about it. But it gives us a chance to actually block out that code and not have it looked at as code. It'll be looked at as a string, so it won't do anything. So functionally, it acts as a comment block for us. And a lot of people, a lot of Python programmers will use this method to just type a regular paragraph about their code and then bound it with 3 quotes, and boom, it's just a comment. Okay? So if you want to comment, you'll see here, if I run the code, nothing happens. Right? It's not really an error, but nothing happens because we've commented out all that code. All right? I'm going to show you one last thing before we get out of here. I try to keep these videos, this is going to be an ongoing joke all semester long because I can never do it. I try to keep these videos around between 20 minutes and 30 minutes, which is why I break them up and I don't do the entire slides in one big presentation. And I always run long because blah, 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 I'm a gabber. So I'm trying to go fast and I don't know if I can. We run this program, yeah? I'm going to remove them and run it one more time. You can see I remove them, and all of a sudden, hey, I got a program again. And I get all those numbers and the string and all of that stuff, and that's great. But you know what? This program can get boring pretty fast. Okay? Now, if I change the numbers, let's say I change that 10 to an 11, then I can rerun it, and I can get different numbers. Oh, that one went bananas. So I can see the arithmetic relations between different numbers using this program pretty easily. But your average person wanting to use this is really out of luck because they're not programmers. They're not going to know to come into this program and change the variables here. When we set variables in a program, and then every time you run the program, it's the same thing, we call that hard coding. We've hard coded these particular values so that they're always going to be A and they're always going to be 11 and 12, no matter how many times a user uses our program. So we want to change that. We want to create a situation where if somebody runs this program, we ask them what numbers they would like to use, and then the program runs for the numbers they want to use, and then they can control the input of the particular program. And that's why the function we're going to take a look at is called the input function. Now, let me section this off again so we don't get an error. And this is the way the input function works. There's a little trick to it, and I'm going to show you that little trick in a minute. Let's say I'm going to get a variable called number, and I am going to say number input, open paren, and then I'm going to put a little string literal that's going to prompt the user. It's called the prompt. So I'm just going to say enter a number, colon space, boom, okay? And that's it. So now, when the program runs, you're going to see enter a number on the screen. The user is going to enter a number, and when that user hits enter, the number they put in is going to be placed in that variable. So whatever number the user put in, I now have in that variable number. So let's square it. I'll say SKU equals number exponentiation 2. So now I have the square of the number. So now the coup de grace, I will print the square of, I end the string literal, I put a comma. I'm going to print the number variable so we see it. I'm going to start a new string literal and say is, and then I will say square. Okay? So that little piece of code right there, number, is going to ask the user for a number. Let's say I enter 20. And number, then it will be assigned the value 20. I come down here, and we always evaluate expressions from right to left. So I have number defined as 20. I'm going to square it. Last time I checked, that would be 400. So the value 400 is going to be put in the variable SQU, squoo. And then I have number, which is 20, squoo, which is 400. So I'm going to print the square of 20 is 400 at the end, right? Everything's good in Dogpatch? Everything's going to work? It's not going to work. It's going to explode. I'm going to show you why. Boom. Save. Run. Dum 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 dum. That is a scary Python compiler error. I should call it piler because technically Python is interpreted. But that is for another day. We got an error. And this is why we got the error. Here, you know what? I'm going to show you some tricks with the Python interactive window. Number, input, enter a number. Oh, wait. That's why I blew up for a completely other reason. I misspelled input. All right, let's get you the correct error. Enter a number, 20. Now it blows up the right way. Okay, I misspelled it, and I should have known because it wasn't colored purple. My eyes are shot, though, believe me. Stare at computer screens for 30 years and then see where your vision is. You'll be like me. It's like hallucinating every day. Anyway, input's now purple, so I spelled it correctly. It asked me for the number, and then it blew up. Okay? I'm thinking to myself, why did this blow up? I have number is 20. Square should be right. Well, you know, what's going on here? In the interactive window, I can check my variables. So I say number. And it gives me 20. Okay, I gave it 20, so that's not so bad. But wait, look at that output. What's hinky about it? It is bounded by single quotes. Aha! Now I kind of have an idea what's going on. When I use the input function, it returns a string. Okay? Now, we know we're old Python hands now. We know a little bit about data types. We want to use an integer if we want to use exponentiation. We're not, you know, what is the square of a word, you know? Now, back in the day, I thought that might work because we could use the plus sign to concatenate strings and we can do some other things. But you can't use exponentiation on a string. And if you go over here and read the error, and I don't expect you to read these crazy errors. You'll be able to after a while. But right now, you know, I don't want you to get scared by this stuff. But if you read this, you'll say unsupported operand type. Ding, that guy right there. String is unsupported for exponentiation or the power function. Okay, because it's a string. It's a word, and we don't really do arithmetic operations on words. So what can we do to tell Python, hey, treat what I give you as a number, because I want to do some math with it, and it's really simple. All I'm going to do is what's called the wrap or surround my input function with something called a casting operator. Or basically it just takes a data type and changes it to another data type. And in computer programming, we call that casting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my string and I'm going to say, hey, Python, do me a solid. Make this an integer. Okay? So that's why the int there. Now when I run it, number is going to get the integer version of what I enter. And then when I try to square it, I should be in Fat City. I'm guessing I will be. Let's run it again. Enter a number. I say 20, and I'm about to hit enter. The suspense is killing me. And now it works. Now it says the square of 20 is 400. And you'll see if I look at number now, it gives me a regular integer and not a string that represents the number 20. And now, because the operation went through, I can actually check out squoo as well. And squoo, correctly, is 400. But now, and this is the neat part, I can run it again. Now I can do 35. I'm not doing 20 every time because I didn't hard code everything. I'm asking the user, which is me in this case, what number they want to square. And I can square numbers all day long. Again, a little boring, but you know, it'll suffice for this particular example. Okay? So that's how the input function works. But remember, if you want to use something as an integer, you want to cast it. If I wanted float, I could do float, and float would be fine too. Because floating point numbers can be used with exponentiation as well. And then I just print it out, and everything's good in the world. Now, the real value of doing things with a program is this. I have my program here, right? I save it, all right? I got to go do the dishes. I got to put my clothes in the dryer. I got to walk the dog. So I'm done with Python for the day. I'm getting rid of it. You know what? I'll even get rid of this. Oh, no. So now I got a blank slate. Go to bed, watch some TV, go to bed, get up the next day. Oh, wait, you know what? I want to square 72. How in God's name am I going to square 72? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up my idle. Okay? I'm going to get my interactive window. Then I'm going to say File. I'm going to say Open. I'm going to go to my trusty Python Data Science directory. I'm going to go to Fall 2016, Unit 1. Hey, there's Rev 1. There's my Python program. I'm going to click Open, and there it is. Back for me to bring up. And now all I have to do is hit F5, enter a number, and I can all of a sudden start squaring numbers again. So that's why we do programs. Because if we did everything in the if I went to the interactive window, I could say 72 2 and do the same thing, okay? But it doesn't get saved. All right, here my logic is saved, and I have that command, and I can use it all the time. All right. So that is basically the first half of your Unit 1 slides, and let me save that. This rev1.py I'm going to put in your Sakai resources, so you're going to have it. You're going to be able to download it to your system and play around with it. You can change things, you can play around with things, because that's how we learn as programmers. We play with things and we dump things like that, all right? Announcements. I am going to do my level best to put together review video 2 tomorrow night, and I'll probably release it on Sunday, so that'll give you a day to sit with this, or 2 days to sit with this. I'm assuming you've been reading the slides. I'm assuming you've been reading the Zell. At the beginning of units, you're always going to have your slides, and you're always going to have your Zell chapters. Hopefully you've gotten the book. If you haven't, go get it. Then, a couple days down the road, I'm going to start feeding you videos. And like I said in one of those announcements, I try to get you all your unit resources by 1 week left in the unit, so that you have all the resources, you can sit in them, you can play with them, you can learn all this stuff. Then, with 1 week left in the unit, you can work on your assignments. And as you're doing the assignments, you go back and reread. Like I say in the 101 document, learning to program is a paint job. The first coat is reading the slides and tinkering a little bit and reading the Zell book. Then the second coat is when you do your assignments. You're going to get your assignments with 1 week to go. Oh, I've got to do some programming. You're going to go back and read the slides in the book, and you want to get things right. Boom, boom, boom. The third coat, the finishing coat, is the night or two before the end of the unit when you're preparing for your quiz. You want to be ready. You want to, know what you're doing and have everything ready for the quiz, so you don't have to really cram it in all that day. So there's a method to the madness. I want you to consider all these things three different times over the course of a unit. And then, you'll learn properly and everything will be cool. I love the fact everybody's getting their bios in. I think I haven't gone and counted, but there's 40-something of us, and I think there's like 21, 22 bios in there already. So that's a good thing. Always do your forum post, because at the end of the day, it's 10% of your grade. It's a lot of points. All right, so that's low-hanging fruit. Go in there, grab it, and make sure you're good with that, okay? So I'm going to get you, if I'm not mistaken, I might be. I think in Unit 1 I get you 3 videos. I think I get you one for the beginning of the slides, another one for the second half of the slides, and then I just do one impromptu video where I put together a program. I usually do a change program where you put in a number of pennies and it'll tell you how many dollars, how many quarters, how many things, blah, blah, blah. So I just do that off the cuff to show you, hey, if you have a programming idea, this is where you start, this is how you do it, and this is what you would do. So look for that probably Monday or Tuesday. I will put up the assignments on Monday, so you'll have the assignments way early, so you can consider them. Newsflash, they're easy, okay? We're just starting out, and I don't want to leave. If anybody's coming to this class with no former programming knowledge, I want you to feel comfortable, and I want you to start slowly and start, doing these tasks, and all of a sudden, slowly but surely, you'll get it. In about a month and a half, you're going to go back and look at these videos and these assignments, and you're going to go, my God, that was simple, right? But right now, it's not simple. I get it. You're learning. We're going to take that time. Those of you with a little bit of programming experience or technical experience, you're thinking this is nuts right now. This is the easiest thing you've ever seen. Stick with it. Practice, okay? I've been programming for, 35 years now. I still learn new stuff. I still benefit from repetition. I still learn new things about Python, okay? So the repetition helps. So do these things. Go through these things. Python, as you're going to find out, does things a little bit differently than other programming languages. So it's always good to get that mindset that, you know what, I'm starting from zero. Let's build up from first principles and learn along the way, all right? So you got this video. A couple days I'll get you the second video, maybe a third one, and then I'll get you the assignments on Monday, and then you're going to have all of the resources you need for Unit 1. And then I believe it's Tuesday the 20th, the programming assignments will be due. You'll have your quiz, your forum post will be due, and all of those points will encompass Unit 1. Then after that, we'll begin Unit 2, and I will start getting you information about the midterm project, okay? Because that's, I usually want to get that to you. I want you to get your sea legs, and then after that, I want you to start considering that midterm project, because you're going to be working with those 3 Python resources, about 2 hours each. I usually get it to you about a month before it's due. So you have a lot of time to work on that and a lot of time to consider that, all right? All right, then I'm going to get out of here. I got to get something to eat, and I got to make sure I get to sleep, because I got to get up tomorrow. The tailgate begins at 9 o'clock in the morning. So me and my friends are in the blue lot tomorrow. Rutgers plays Howard. I think the game starts at noon. They looked terrible last week. They went to Washington, and they lost very badly. It was 24-0 in the first quarter. They got spanked. So it does not look like it's going to be a banner year for Rutgers football. Who cares? Tailgate should be fun. Get to see my old friends in Section 224. That's where I am. I'm a season ticket holder, so if you happen to go to Rutgers football game and you want to come by and say hi, please come by. We love new people. We love saying hi. So I got to get that out of the way, and then tomorrow night I'm going to come home, and I think I'm going to shoot your second video for Unit 1. All right? All right, then I'm getting out of here. You be good, and have a good weekend, and I will see you later.